A little while ago I made an Instagram video demonstrating that it's possible to use a video game controller as a musical instrument. In this video I'll walk you through the steps of how to get this set up. Basically what we need to do is turn this video game controller into a MIDI device and then have that go into your computer and have your computer recognize each of these different buttons as a trigger that will launch a specific sound. Before we get started, here's a quick look at that Instagram video demonstration I mentioned. This is a Super Nintendo controller, and as much as I'd like to use this to play some video games, I thought, wouldn't it be even more fun if I could use this to play music? So I've rigged it up to my computer through two different programs, Ableton Live and Joystick Mapper, and I've reconfigured it to now play piano sounds. And I'd like to answer a question that's plagued humankind for decades. Is it possible to play Bach on a Nintendo controller? Well, that was fun, but let's try something else. Now instead of keyboard sounds, I've downloaded a bunch of sound effects from the Super Mario Bros. Video game. What I now have is a Super Mario Bros. Drum machine. I'm going to walk you through how to do this by using Apple products because that's what I'm most familiar with. If you're good with troubleshooting, I imagine that most of this should be possible with PCs, though there might be a few runarounds you'll have to make, and if you have any experience with that and you want to let us know in the comments anything you needed to change, that would be really helpful. You'll need a few things to get started. You'll need a video game controller that you can plug into your computer, which means it probably needs to have a USB connection. Now this is actually one of the trickiest parts of the process. There are some video game controllers that already come with a USB connection. For this project, I chose to find some imitation Super Nintendo controllers online that I could find with a USB connection. The reason I'm not putting a link to this product in the description is because I ordered a 2-pack and it turned out that only one of them worked. So you'll have to make a choice here. Do you want to get an expensive but legit controller that should definitely work? Or you could take your chances like me and see if you could find the cheap alternative. The next thing you'll need is a cheap application that you can put on your Mac product called Joystick Mapper. Joystick Mapper is a program that right now is going for about $5, and what it does is it allows you to assign keyboard functions to your video game controller. I'll show it to you in a minute, but in other words, what it's doing is it's letting me assign, let's say this button for instance, to the letter D on my keyboard, so that every time I push this button on my controller, it would be just the same as if I typed D on my keyboard. The last thing you'll need is definitely the most expensive, but I've got a little workaround for it. You'll need some version of Ableton Live. Ableton Live is a digital audio workstation, or DAW. In other words, it's a computer program where you'll be able to plug in different sounds that you want and assign them to different keystrokes on your computer. Now the Ableton Live suite is expensive. At the moment of this recording, it could cost you as much as $750. My first hack is that if you are a student or a teacher, you could get a major discount. Right now it looks like that discount is 50% off. But I've got an even better hack for you. If you're not planning on using all of the features of Ableton Live, you could get away using what's called Ableton Live Lite for some project like this. And my workaround for this is you could get a product like this. This is called a Launchpad. It's just a fancy MIDI controller. Now this product deserves a video of its own, but suffice it to say it's a fancy MIDI controller where each one of these buttons can trigger some different sounds and even a little light show like this. Here's what's neat. If you get one of these Launchpads or Launchpad Mini or any variety of these, as far as I know, they should come with a program called Ableton Live Lite. And depending on which type of Launchpad you're getting, I think some of these go for as little as like $70. And that means you're getting the software plus this cool toy. I'll put some links for that in the description. By the way, when possible, I'll use affiliate links for products that I put in the description. That means that they cost the exact same amount as if you go ahead and buy them yourself on Amazon, but the company will give me a small commission. Alright, so if you've got all of these products, then you're ready to go. One more quick thing to be aware of. Your Mac computer might not have a USB port. In that case, just make sure that you've got a dongle or some way that you can connect your video game controller to the computer directly. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Once you've got all of this stuff, you're ready to get started. So you can go ahead and open up Joystick Mapper, making sure that your video game controller is connected to the computer. Now over here on Joystick Mapper, we're going to go ahead and find this button that says Add a new preset. I'm going to call my preset Ableton Project. Once we have this, we're going to go ahead and add a new joystick. Now, hopefully your joystick should be showing up right over here. If it's not, go ahead and check to make sure that your controller is connected correctly to the computer. And if it is, you might unfortunately need to do a little bit of troubleshooting. Some controllers might even require you to install a driver. If you go to the website of the developer who makes Joystick Mapper, you'll see that there's a frequently asked questions section. And the developer even invites you to email them questions directly and they can get back to you if you need some help troubleshooting. Okay, since I've got my joystick here, I'm going to click over here to add a new bind. By the way, you can ignore all of this stuff in the background. That's just Ableton, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So what we're going to see is this first opportunity for us to map a button to a stroke on our keyboard. So in order to find out which button we're going to start with, you're going to push this button Scan. Now when I push Scan, basically I'm going to choose one button on my controller, and it's going to select that as what we're going to combine with one of the keystrokes on our keyboard. So let me show you. I'm going to click Scan here, and then I'm going to hold down a button. I'll start with one of my arrow keys. And it's calling this access number 4, but suffice it to say that's one of the buttons that I have. Okay, then it's going to ask what keyboard key do I want this to be? It's defaulting to A. That's fine. What if you want it to be something else? You can go ahead and do anything you want. If you want to do just numbers or symbols or anything, but let's stick with A for now. Now I'm going to do this for each one of these buttons. So let's say I'm going to go add a new bind. And let's say this time I'm going to hold down the Y button. And it's going to call that button 3. And let's say, now I don't want this to be A again because I already have an A, and that would mean two different buttons are using the same keyboard stroke. So let's call this one B. Okay, and you're going to go through each one of the buttons on your controller, or if you only want a couple of buttons, that's fine too. And remember to look all around on these controllers. For instance, in my controller, I have these special buttons on the top that do left and right from this old SNES model. Now for the sake of time, I've already created a preset where I've got all of this information already input. So I'm going to close out of here, but you should go ahead and take a moment, pause, finish this whole part on your own. And you're going to select which one of your presets you want. I'm going to select the one that I called Ableton Live because it's the one that I've already made in advance. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up Ableton Live or Ableton Live Lite. If you don't have something that looks like this, you can click on File and then go to New Live Set. Now we're going to see a bunch of different strips here. Some of them say MIDI and some of them say audio. What you're going to want to do is find some audio clips that you're going to use that you're going to want to map to this. And these could be any sounds at all. They could be sounds of a recorded instrument. They could be sounds that you make, or if you're a music teacher, you could have your students go out and find different sounds that they want to record. Once you've got that, you're going to want to go to this samples part of the window, and you can go ahead and import the sounds that you want to use. I'll use some of the sounds that are already in here, and if I simply click on one of them, I'll get to hear what that sounds like. So let's say I want to use this sound that I just clicked on. I'm going to go ahead and drag it over to one of our little slots in the audio. And now every time I click on this part over here, it should play that sound for us. Now one thing you're going to want to adjust is right over here, if it says 1 bar, go ahead and click that drop down and switch it to none. 1 bar means it's going to wait a measure before it goes ahead and activates that clip. But if you say none, it should do it automatically. So now you can go ahead and assign some different sounds. Oh, that's an interesting one. I'll put that over here. Now, one thing I want you to note is that you can't do 2 sounds on the same audio strip. So if you want to be able to have a bunch of different sounds at the same time, you're going to want some new audio strips. So I might go over here. Underneath Create, I'm going to say Insert Audio Track. And there we go. I've got another one. So these are all percussion and effects just for this example, but again, you could use whatever kind of sounds you'd like to use. You saw in my Instagram video, I use some with piano sounds and I use some with Mario sounds. Now it's time to go ahead and map all of these to different keys on your keyboard. So I'm going to click over here where it says Key, which is going to allow you to map this to any button that you want. So while I click on the first sound, I'm going to go ahead and push down on one of the buttons on my controller. So I'll try this one for instance. And you'll see that I put a 9 over here. Why does it say 9? Because in Joystick Mapper, I chose 9 as the number that I would map to this button. Let's try doing another sound. This one, I'll push my B button on my controller. And you can see that says 0 because that's what I mapped to that one. Let's do one more. I'll do the X button for this one. And that one you can see is the equal sign. So I have 9, 0, and equal. And when I unclick key, I could actually press 9, 0, and equal on my keyboard like this. And it should activate those sounds for me. But I could do the exact same thing on my controller. And now I get all of those sounds right there. I know this is a little bit tech heavy and it's a little bit complicated, but it's lots of fun if you can get this set up. And even better if you can incorporate this into a piece of music. I hope all of this makes sense. If this is something that you think you're gonna try or something that you already did try or you have some ideas of how to apply this, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And please make sure to subscribe to my channel to keep getting videos like this one.